live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook friends. Hello, friends on New Reality TV.
Yes,
Big TV. We've got a lot of people watching, and this is a very important special event. It's our second part interview with Marc Sims, all in preparation for this extraordinary event that's about to happen in July. We also have Robert Perala, Alan Steinfeld, and Satyan Raja, who are going to be with us mostly to really ask Marc some key questions. And I want to welcome everybody that are already coming into our Zoom room. Welcome to everybody on Facebook. And please, we recognize that the majority of people are going to be watching a replay. You're not going to be watching this live, but you can still put your thoughts and questions into the comments box, and we will do our best to respond to you. I'm Love Coach Scott Katamas. I'm very excited about this. And we're going to start by showing you a video which helps to start introducing all about the previous harmonic convergence in 1987 and why we have a new harmonic convergence taking place starting in just 1 week. So here we go. And thank you very much for being with us. And please share this with your Facebook friends and family, all right? We want to get the word out to as many people as we possibly can.
In 1987, millions of people around the world joined together in the first synchronized global meditation for world peace, known as the Harmonic Convergence. This historic event coincided with a remarkable alignment of planets, drawing together people of all faiths and colors to usher in a new era of peace on Earth and to initiate contact with higher dimensional beings. On July 14th, 2020, 33 years later, a similarly rare alignment is occurring. Welcome to the Harmonic Convergence 2020.
Harmonic Convergence is like the launching pad for phase 2 of the Cultural Revolution that began on this planet in the 1960s.
On August 16th and 17th, 1987, Jose and Loidine Arguelles called for a harmonic convergence, an event to bring the global human family together, to raise our consciousness and, as a result, usher in world peace. And in a time without the internet, social media, or the ubiquity of cell phones, millions around the world joined, even resulting in a collective Om on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show.
True believers say this is the beginning of a new age, and even the skeptics might agree we could use one about now.
Most of this energy is directed to that, to a future where we can have some of the problems of hunger and war and racism and sexism and all those type of things resolved.
We have lost this beautiful harmony way of life, and also the love that goes with it. That is the only way we ever gonna unite, is through our love for all people and everything here on earth.
It's just a preparation for the earth to regenerate itself from the way we've treated it and to make different choices. And the energy is available astrologically from the prophecies from these different cultures.
This is about time.
At the core of the 87 Harmonic Convergence was the belief that the current Gregorian calendar system, based on a 12-month calendar year, was deeply out of sync with the rhythms of nature, giving rise to global discord as a result.
The harmonic convergence is based upon the cycles of time as charted by the Mayan calendar.
Ancient civilizations, from Egypt to Greece, the Mayans, the Celtic Druids, and even the Native American Lakota, operated on a 13-month calendar, known as the lunar solar calendar. They followed this calendar as a way to maintain the natural harmony of the rhythms of nature. As a simple way to understand this, consider that a year is 365 days, one full rotation of the Earth around the Sun. However, what we call a month, based on the word moon, is about 28 days. The moon rotates around the Earth 13 times in 1 year, not 12. Therefore, why do we not operate on a cycle of 13 months consisting of 28 days? Would this not be closer to the natural order of time?
We didn't know, all of us, we were living in the wrong time. So when we get on the new time, we will have a return to our natural biological cycle.
Interestingly, even a woman's natural fertility cycle is 28 days, which matches the moon's orbit of Earth.
And you better believe it, women. That's why we have felt at war within our own body system, because we literally have not had the right standard of measure for our biological timing.
The crooked calendar creates a crooked mind, creates a crooked society, creates a crooked civilization.
We got to break out of this. The Gregorian calendar is something that's really upsetting the natural balance. The effect of it is that we are living in a system of time that is out of sync with nature.
The 87 Harmonic Convergence was a call to step into a higher order of human consciousness, one that is more harmonized with nature and in deep connection with the soul's natural tendency toward love.
On a non-physical level, us being here and thinking of peace and love and it's sending out energy, and that it has an effect on the cosmos.
The belief was that by tuning to higher states of consciousness, it would not only call forth a new age of peace and well-being on Earth, but would also give humanity access to higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings, proving once and for all that we are not alone.
There may be UFO sightings, or there may not be, but there will definitely be some type of communications of an extraterrestrial nature.
Rather than seeing extraterrestrial contact as something enabled by technology, Arguelles believed it's simply a natural result of raising our consciousness to a higher level, one where they could hear us and we could hear them, benefiting from the knowledge they impart. Since the 87 Harmonic Convergence, UFO sightings have continued to be on the rise, paralleling an increasing number of scientists, researchers, and former military who are disclosing the truth about our neighbors in the cosmos. In fact, for those who look, there's a fairly rich history of human and ET contact. As far back as 1958, Wilbert Smith, a Canadian government worker with a master's degree in electrical engineering and over a half-dozen patents, set out to research the phenomenon of UFOs.
I started the investigation out of curiosity and as an extreme skeptic, fully expecting to find the phenomena to be due to man-made or natural causes.
And what he found completely changed his life.
There is virtually no doubt that alien craft are visiting this Earth, and that the beings who operate them are very much like us, probably our distant relatives.
During his investigation, Wilbert Smith made contact with an ET named Alpha, who helped him understand the underlying physics and philosophy of the ETs and their spacecraft.
I began for the first time in my life to realize the basic oneness of the universe and all that is in it. Science, philosophy, religion, substance, and energy are all facets of the same jewel. And before any one facet can be appreciated, the form of the jewel itself must be perceived.
Could it be that the evolution of our spiritual nature is connected to the presence of ETs on Earth? What if connecting to higher states of consciousness, states of love, unity, and kindness were the key to unlocking a new phase of civilization, one where we recognize that we are truly not alone? Global UFO sightings continue to be on the rise, and over the 33 years since the first Harmonic Convergence, a new community of seekers, scientists, and peace activists have found that through certain meditation practices that open the heart to love and kindness, reliable contact can be made with our cosmic family.
We are not alone.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome to all of the new people that are joining us live on Facebook, live on New Realities TV, Awake TV, and of course, all the people that are sharing this out. And also want to welcome that we have over 40 people in our Zoom room. I'm Love Coach Scott Thomas, and this may be the most important interview that I've done yet in my extraordinary interview series. I want to let some of you know, you all know me from Love Coach Academy, but for 7 years, I made my living producing metaphysical and mystical television shows, all nationally broadcast for a wide variety of networks and channels and shows. And I was mostly in charge of the UFO stuff. And so during that 7-year period, from 1994 to 2001, I interviewed 8 former astronauts, 30 former military officials, and really was well funded and traveled around the world, really learning a lot about the whole UFO thing. And I'm not here to say anything other than I have some history, some background. And I am very excited about an individual that you're going to be meeting. Some of you saw my interview with him last week. The response was so extraordinary, it went viral, that I've brought him back because something very important is about to happen. And I want as many people as possible to be aware of it and to be in tune with it and to benefit from it. I want to introduce you to Marc Sims. I'm going to put the spotlight on Marc. Hey, Marc.
Hi, Scott. Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Scott. It's a real honor and a pleasure, and I'm excited to be here. I thought our first interview last week was terrific, and you always bring a great energy about you. And anyway, I'm just happy to be here. Thank you for having me back.
Great to have you here, too. Marc, I want for you to maybe just briefly, for people who didn't watch the first interview, share with people a little bit about your experience that took place in 2012. And then we're going to, of course, focus on what's coming up with the Harmonic Convergence 2020. And I've brought 3 friends of ours who are all very wise about extraterrestrial intelligence. They've had their own experiences and been in that world. Just to kind of check in, share why they think this is very important, and maybe to ask you a few questions. But sure. I wanted to just kind of share with people a little bit about what happened in 2012.
Yeah. I was retired for a second time. My background is information technology. I got a degree in computer-aided design. I got my first job out of college with Sun Microsystems. I had a 5-year, very successful career with Sun when it was just getting started. In 1992, I started my first company, Netrix, which was an internet security company that became incredibly successful beyond my wildest dreams. I sold that business in 1999 and retired. I started a second company in 2004 called Nanorex, which was a software company for developing, in which we developed a 3D modeling system to design and simulate nanosystems, specifically advanced nanosystems like the kinds that we read about in science fiction, tiny machines that could, for instance, swim in your bloodstream and kill cancer cells or send you information about what's going on in your body passively. For instance, if you had high blood sugar and you were diabetic, it could warn you. Those kind of applications were the ones that intrigued me, and all this was inspired by a book called Engines of Creation that I read in 1989. It had been published in '86 by Dr. Eric K. Drexler, and it just inspired me to develop a new software package for designing things that were very tiny in atomic resolution. And I thought that applications for nanomachines could improve the world and the human condition. And so I set out to start that company in 2004. That was very successful. And then I decided to shut that business down because of concerns with the technology getting into the wrong hands and possibly using for the wrong purposes. And so I retired a second time and took up ballroom dancing as a hobby. And after 3 years of ballroom dancing, in which I began competing after the first year, I became an amateur champion ballroom dancer. And it was in that time, I had just become a very good dancer and I was winning championships that I learned about Dr. Stephen Greer. And I decided after watching the Disclosure Project, which was a press conference that was held in the spring of 2001 in Washington, D.C., the video featured a collection of 20 witnesses, all from the military or NASA, and one person from the FAA, who was the executive there, director, all claiming to have had incredible witness accounts of either meeting extraterrestrials or of seeing ships that interacted with them. And I found their testimony compelling and decided that if what they were saying was true, that it was the most important story in human history. And so I decided to look into Greer himself. He had simply organized this event called the Disclosure Project. And I learned that he had written 3 books on the subject of extraterrestrial contact. I read them and discovered that he held these retreats. He called them CE5 ambassador trainings that were designed to teach a special meditative practice in which he claimed you could use to initiate contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. So I was skeptical, but intrigued enough to sign up and register for his November 2012 class, which was being held in Borrego Springs, California. And on the 5th evening of a 6-day retreat, our small group of 25 people were meditating. And at the end of our meditation, we open our eyes, I look up in the sky, and a ship materializes out of thin air above our group. And when I saw that with my own eyes, I knew that they were real. And for me, that was a profound changing, earth changing or world changing moment. And I was never the same after that. So later that night, after we retired, which we did about 1 a.m, I went back to my hotel room and I could not fall asleep because I was amped up and ruminating about the implications now that I was certain that extraterrestrials were real and that we had successfully summoned a craft that was very close to us. I decided to try this meditation that I had been practicing for 5 days in the privacy of my hotel room. And guess what? It worked. Standing at the end of my bed after a short meditation was a light being, what appeared to be a ghost or a hologram, very bright, humanoid looking. I greeted it, and after I greeted it, it approached me on my left side. I was sitting up in my bed. I didn't move a muscle. I didn't want to do anything to indicate that I was afraid or would startle it. I wanted to show that I was ready for this experience and I wanted to know the truth. And I indeed desired a relationship with an extraterrestrial. I had read about stories of people like George Van Tassel and Whitley Strieber, and many other people that had contact and had that contact had then turned into long friendships. And that's what I desired once I knew that they were real. And so I didn't want to do anything to cause it to leave so I kept cool. And as it approached me, it stopped. I looked up into its face. And as I was looking up into his eyes, I noticed his hand was moving and he had his finger out like this. And I looked down and he's coming very intently towards my elbow with his finger. And I watch him touch my elbow. And when he touches my elbow, I feel a tingly sensation. And after that happens, he continues to push his finger into my elbow, and I feel the tingly sensation grow because where our bodies are merging, I'm feeling this sensation, and it's growing as he continues to push through my body with his hand and then his arm. And eventually, as he's merging with me, his shoulder merges with the left side of my body. And it's at that point that I begin to freak out because I'm not ready for this. I wasn't anticipating this whatsoever, but I forced myself to sit still because I had the fight or flight response kick in very suddenly. So I really forced myself to sit still. And as he continued to merge into my body, that tingly sensation was all over. And so I just sat there and wrote it out. And after about a moment or two, I noticed the tingly sensation beginning to subside, and eventually it completely dissipated. And I was then left after my body felt it was normal again. I had this acute awareness that there was something in me. There was this entity in me. And so I, sat there for a moment contemplating this concept that there's another being inside of me and how strange of a feeling that was. And yet I was so certain that it was happening. And so I asked it, what's your name? And he said, using my mouth and my vocal cords in a very deep guttural voice, he said, Tejraba, just like that. So I tried to repeat it, and I didn't do a very good job because he said, no, Tejraba, just like that. So I knew I was missing something, and I asked him to spell it, and he said, Tezjbar, Tejraba. And so once he spelled it, I could get a good idea of how I should say it. And I repeated it a few times until I had the knowing, just a feeling of satisfaction that I knew was coming from him, that I was pronouncing it correctly. My next question is, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Earth. Of course, that threw me off because I didn't know or hear of any extraterrestrial being claiming to be from Earth. I had been with Greer all week, and he was talking about beings from other star systems like Sirius, Orion, Arcturus, Zeta Reticuli. Nobody, including the books that I had read up to that point, none of them claimed to be ETs from Earth. And so I said, how could, can you explain this? How could you be from Earth? You don't look like any Earth creature I've ever seen. And he said, I was once human like you. Roughly 3,000 years ago, I was the chieftain of a mighty tribe down in an area called Tierra del Fuego. And when I died, I ascended to the astral realm. That's what he said. He said, I lived 3,000 years ago, roughly 3,000 years ago, in an area that is today called Tierra del Fuego. When I died, I ascended to the astral realm. And so I immediately stopped my questions because I knew that possibly I was just talking to myself. That the experience I had just had was very real, but after the tingly sensation had dissipated, I thought maybe I'm just imagining this being inside of me. And now I had something that I was certain was information I did not know, this place called Tierra del Fuego. So I got on my computer, I had my laptop, I was in a hotel with Wi-Fi, internet access, and I started up Google Earth, and I typed in Tierra del Fuego and hit the search button. And if you've used Google Earth, there's the globe of the Earth, and it begins zooming in and rotating to the location. And I can see it beginning to rotate down to South America, and it continues all the way to the southernmost tip of Argentina. And when it finishes and it fills in the detail, there it is in bold lettering, Tierra del Fuego. And I was absolutely stunned, because for me, that was a major confirmation that I was not imagining this, that this wasn't some alter ego or invisible friend that I had created in my own mind. This was information I was being given by another being who was cohabiting in my body. So then, before putting away my computer, I decided, since his name was so unusual, I would Google his name the way he spelled it for me. And when I Googled it, there was only one hit. This was back again in November of 2012. And back then, there was only one hit in all of the Google database. And when I clicked on it, it happened to take me to a link of a Google Doc, a book on Google Docs that had been scanned. And it was a book published in 1916 by a man named Jonathan Cooper, who was an anthropologist, and he had been given a grant by the Smithsonian Institute to go down to Tierra del Fuego and study the indigenous tribes of that area. And this book was all about the territories of Tierra del Fuego, the tribes that live there, their cultures. And in the back of the book was a small glossary of words from their native Fuegian tongue. That was the name for their language, Fuegian. And the word and the words in the glossary were translated from the native tongue into phonetic English. And there was a word there in the glossary, Tejbar, spelled just the way he had spelled it, and it translated directly to forehead.
Wow. Wow. So I just want to come in for a moment because this is where it gets really, I mean, it's all fascinating, but you know, I've been kind of scanning all the comments that are coming in from people. And of course, it's natural that some people are very excited, appreciating you sharing your story. But one of the comments was, well, what makes this guy's story unique, right? I mean, a lot of people have had visitations of various kinds. So I want to address that for a moment. And we have, again, in a moment, or later in this time, I'm going to hear from three people that have been very involved over the years in various extraterrestrial contact in the desert, UFO conferences, their own experiences. So one thing that I think is important is let's all be respectful. And anybody who's had a personal experience, let's always honor that that's their experience. And then the hard part is like trying to figure out what it all means, right? As someone who produced UFO television for a long, long time, I've met a lot of experiencers. It's wonderful when someone has had the level of connection that Marc has had, and then has been blessed to be able to find some extraordinary backup, as he just did, you know, about this being that's merged with him. I also want to say the reason I'm excited about Marc is that remember, this happened 8 years ago, but for 8 years, he's been in contact and communication with this being that, as best as I can understand it, Marc, merged with you. Mm-hmm. And in that merged place, he's been in a dialogue. And that dialogue has led to what we're going to be talking a lot about tonight, which is the upcoming Harmonic Convergence. I'm going to, for a moment, I just want to kind of tune into our panel. And again, we're here mostly to hear from Marc, but I've brought three friends of mine that I have a lot of respect for. I just want to give each of them a chance to share why they believe that Marc's story and what's happening with the Harmonic Convergence, which we're going to learn a lot about, is so important. And I'll start with my friend Alan Steinfeld, I've known for 32 years. And Alan is who created New Realities TV. And Alan, you've interviewed hundreds of people, maybe thousands. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. What about Harmonic Convergence 2020 and Marc has touched you?
Well, actually, it all started for me in 1987 at the original Harmonic Convergence. I had heard Jose Aguirre speak the year before. He said this great event's going to be happening. And then I took off in around May of 1987 to travel the country and see where did I want to be on the Harmonic Convergence when it hit, because everybody was talking about it in sort of the subculture of what was called the New Age, which of course had a bad name by the end of the 80s. But at the time, the New Age was the blossoming consciousness that was coming. It was the kind of the awakening of what is now, I call the Aquarian Age. And that was really the beginning. So someone asked in the chat, what was the result of that Harmonic Convergence? Well, it was really the beginning of technology. Computers were coming on after that. The crystal craze was happening. Meditation was being accepted. There was a real change in the consciousness of the collective in that time around 1987, 88, and that progression into the 90s. So I had a UFO experience in that time. I had an actual contact abduction experience in July of 1987 as I was leaving the Oregon Country Fair. And that awakened me to the fact that, hey, we have company. It was a little traumatic. I mean, Robert has a traumatic story too, but I started to open up to the fact that, yeah, we are not alone and we've never been alone. And actually, we are part of something bigger. And from that point on, I became obsessed with the idea of UFOs, contact. I mean, you, as it's called in the business, you were sucked down the rabbit hole. And I was sucked down the rabbit hole and wanted, I mean, it freaked me out a little bit, but I wanted to know everything about it. I went and met Bud Hopkins, John Mack, Whitley Strieber. I met the big names, and these were intelligent people, respectable people. John Mack was a professor of psychiatry at Harvard University. Of course, he got into trouble saying, yes, people have been abducted, but it was a time of awakening for me. And now what Marc has done is revitalize that freshness. 87 was a real fresh, awakening, exciting time. And now there's this buzz that Marc has generated from his contact, where now that's all I see on the internet are people talking about this new date of harmonic convergence. And it's sort of building on the momentum that happened 33 years ago. You know, 33 is a magic number. Jesus was 33. There was all that. So this 33-year cycle is part of a sacred time. So it's a revisioning of that sacred moment that we had visited on August 16th and 17th. I ended up being in the Magic Meadow in Woodstock, in the town of Woodstock, which was a great celebration. But people were gathering all over Sedona and Maui and Chaco Canyon, and we were somehow all connected. Central Park, I mean, it was the global mind. So now we're in the next level of our evolution to create this global mind. And I'm so happy Marc had the resources and the intelligence and the drive to start reconnecting the dots on this higher level so we can start to engage. I mean, I think UFOs, ETs, and the environmental crisis are the two main issues that are going to propel us. Either we make that leap or we don't. I mean, after we get along with each other, of course, but you know, that's nature.
Thank you. Hang on, I want to get to Marc for a minute, because there's a couple of really important questions that come up, and then I want us to get into Harmonic Convergence 2020. I'm kind of monitoring all the chats, and a few people have been asking, well, is Teshbar an extraterrestrial? It sounds more like he's a spirit that, you know, has been connected to the Earth plane. So that's a question that's been coming in for us, Marc.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's not easy to answer, but let me answer it this way. What I learned over this 13 days with Teshbar, we were in this state of what he called communion. And he explained that to be the joining of three things: the physical body, which was mine, and my soul, which he called the astral body. And the astral body is simply a stage of the soul's evolution. And then he described himself as a celestial body or a celestial being. And what he said to me is that to become human, you have to go through stages of development from the animal kingdom. So to reach human consciousness, we all have gone through many, many, many lifetimes as animals. There are 4 major stages before you reach the 5th stage that he described as the human stage. The first stage is the arthropods. So when the first animal that you may have been is something like a fruit fly, something with a very tiny brain. And then you would die and you would be reincarnated as a beetle. Then you'd die and be reincarnated as a moth. And you would go through many, many thousands of different insects. And then eventually you would move to stage 2, and that would be the stage of reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Stage 3 was birds and waterfowl. Stage 4, mammals and marsupial, and then finally human. But he explained that when we die, we are typically reincarnated to become human again until we eventually meet some level or criteria by which we moved to stage 6. And he said that's what happened to him when he died. Because I asked him, I said, well, when you died as a human 3,000 years ago, what happened? And he said he ascended to the astral realm. And I said, that sounds a bit like heaven. And he says, yes, that's the Christian concept of heaven. Basically, it's much, much more than that. And I said, so is that where I'm going to go when I die? And he said, no, not necessarily. You are typically going to be reincarnated to continue your learning through multiple incarnations until you reach a point where you can graduate to that next major stage. And I asked him, well, what is the requirements for ascension? And he said, at the time, I asked him the first morning that we had communed, and he said, I want to answer that later, kind of hold on, I'll explain that later. So on the 13th day, one of the last things he said to me was that to ascend, one must master unconditional love. And I said, well, what is unconditional love and how does one master it? What kind of love is that you're talking about? And he says, Mark, that is for you to discover on your own. And just a few hours later, he left me. He left my body. So I've been on this, one of my paths here through this journey that changed my life from 2012 is continuing to study love, all of its, different meanings, and ultimately what unconditional love truly means. And I believe I only discovered it recently, what the kind of unconditional love he was referring to. And that ultimately is the love for oneself, unconditional love for oneself, the ability to forgive yourself for all your mistakes, all the things we regret that hold us back, and the guilt, things that we may have done at some point in our lives, and we all make mistakes. But of course, some of us have made mistakes, or all of us have made mistakes that we always regret, even into our old age, and they hold us back. And it's hard to forgive ourselves. We always say, oh, if I had it to do over again, I would not have done that. The point is that you did do it, and you learned from that. Accept and love yourself unconditionally, move on, forgive yourself. And that's the kind of love ultimately he's talking about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that, because I believe that as well. I've done a lot of near-death experience documentaries, and everyone out there, all the researchers, the common thing when people are out there having their experience and they realize the meaning of life, it's always a variation on what Marc just said. We're here to learn to love, starting with ourselves. I want to acknowledge that we have a few hundred people between the Zoom room and Facebook, and a lot of chats coming in. I can't put everybody's comments out there, but I want to mention a few that are dynamic. One person said, yes, 84,000 lifetimes is what he was taught. Carol writes, Neanderthal to Homo sapien to Homo universalis to light being. And she's curious how long he was in your body. And it's kind of cool just about synchronicity. I want to acknowledge synchronicity. A woman named Carmen Williams writes, this is my first time attending any kind of meeting like this. I'm here because I started having contact in 2015. Just today, I've been engaged in this conversation. I opened my email and I found this email. And here I am. I knew I had to join. Thank you for reaching out. So just really appreciating the synchronicity of things. And I want to bring on board for a moment, you're talking about evolution. I think the whole point of the Harmonic Convergence 2020, where we're going, is obviously our planet is in an amazing time of evolution as we're in this global COVID timeout. And I brought on somebody I have a tremendous amount of respect for, who teaches accelerated evolution. And he's had his own ET experiences. Satyan Raja, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Scott, and thanks, gentlemen, and Marc. Thanks so much for your story. I first, saw you just a few days ago being interviewed by Scott, and immediately I just had this, okay, I need to meet this man. And so it's wonderful, again, in the stream of things that we're here in this way. So I'm honored and very grateful. I had three definitive experiences, if you will, UFO experiences in my life. One was with my family over our home in British Columbia, very clear. Our children saw it. We all had a very powerful experience. There was a deep purification process that happened after that in terms of our food, our thoughts. And there was without any words, a telepathic communication that was there for quite a while. And then two other occasions in Hawaii above us with other friends. And, all these times we've been very sober, straight, conscientious. And because of my experience with magic in terms of conjuring magic and always making sure things and checking out the skeptical side of things, I'm always looking for, is there holes in my cognition, in my awareness, in my bias? I'm doing my best with all of that. And I've had very powerful experiences. And that took me on a road of, once that happens, there's something that cracks. There's something that cracks permanently. And I believe that this time right now is a very powerful, opportune time for the world to come together. We've all been slowed down through all this world experience of epidemic and such. And how opportune this moment is for a force that brings us all together, that helps us move beyond our old tribalisms and gets us to see that we're part of a much larger universal family. And I'm all for this Harmonic Convergence 2020, because I believe that this is the time. It's showing us, everything is showing us now that we're in the time of unifying hearts, spirits, and who we are as humanity, and to move beyond our painful terror that we inflict on each other, only because we've forgotten our wholeness. So I'm very grateful for what Marc is sharing. I believe it's going to be touching many people's lives and help us raise to the, if you will, octave of consciousness in which we start to experience ourselves far more than just this physical being. And that we see that others have transcended, we can also go there and go to the stars and also go to the expanses of time and space.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Satyan, and thank you for the wonderful work you're doing with Warrior Sage and Accelerated Evolution. And I think we'll hear from you again, hopefully before our program ends tonight. Marc, let's start talking about Harmonic Convergence 2020. How did this vision come to you? Tell us a little bit about it, and then I think maybe we'll show the video if you'd like.
Yes, I had a vision in 2015 during a morning meditation. This happened twice, 8 days apart. And the second time was on May 25th of 2015. And I'm meditating as I was doing daily, and I continue to do daily. But it's rare for me to have a vision. And this was so strong of a vision, it was like a movie playing on the inside of my eyelids. It began in which I'm flying through the clouds, actually above a cloud deck, and on the horizon is the setting sun. And I then go down through the clouds, I pop out below, and below me is a desert scene, an arid desert. I continue to descend until I approach what appears to be a gathering of thousands of people, like a music festival, kind of like Burning Man, but it wasn't that many people. It was much smaller. There must have been maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people there. They were gathered around a stage. They were sitting in the lotus seated position, and they were not really close together. They were kind of spaced out, so many feet apart. There was on the stage a big jumbotron, like a television, like a Sony jumbotron that you see at sporting events. And on that screen were 3 scenes side by side. On the left was what was obviously Paris, because you had in the background the Eiffel Tower. In the middle, you had a step pyramid from somewhere either in South or Central America. And on the right was some location that looked tropical, but I couldn't identify it. But in all three cases, you had people in the foreground that were meditating. And what came to me was that they were all gathered in a global meditation for world peace. And as soon as that intuition came, a date popped up, and it was July 5th, 2020, as if, some title, in a fancy font. And that date faded away and a new date appeared, and it was July 14th, 2020. That faded away, and then the whole scene faded away. And what I was downloaded with is that I was being asked or requested to organize a global meditation for world peace and unity, universal unity. That these were literally the two things that were given to me. And so when I had this vision for the second time, I took it as a mandate that I was being asked to organize this. And because of my business background and my ability to organize teams of people to do, to accomplish goals in collaboration together, I felt that maybe I was being called because I have this natural ability to organize people and get things done quickly. So I began doing research on the internet. How does one go about organizing a global meditation? I had never done anything like that before. I wasn't even aware that there had been such a thing that had occurred in human history. And to my surprise, when I Googled it, one of the first things that popped up was the 1987 Harmonic Convergence. And what I learned after some research is that that was organized by a man named Jose Arguelles. And like me, when he was a young man, he had a vision while he was in Mexico City about organizing a global meditation for world peace, in which he spent the rest of his life organizing. And there were over millions of people. Nobody knows for sure how many people, but there are many estimates of a few million people that gathered. And this was before social media, before cell phones. And so he really must have dedicated quite a bit of his energy and time to get that organized. And it also coincided with a astrological event, and that was a major alignment of the planets, a rare alignment of the planets. So on a whim, I decided to see what was happening astrologically when during this period of time. Now, this is back in 2015, 5 years ago. And to my great surprise, there was another major alignment of the planets. Only this time it was even more significant, because the one that happened in 1987 was a 6-planet alignment. This time we have a 7-planet alignment. And all 9 planets, I count Pluto as one of our planets, but all 9 planets fall in one quadrant of the elliptic, the solar ecliptic plane. And that's quite unusual. I could not find any reference to there ever being a major alignment of the planets like that. It's really rare. And to this day, I believe it's the only recorded time in history, in recorded history, in modern history, in which we have a 7-planet alignment. The closest I found was a quote from a NASA scientist in 1999, who said that a 6-planet alignment in a tight arc happens only once every 100 years or so. So a 7-planet alignment is a major deal. So I took this as a confirmation that there's something really significant, and it's, seems to have a lot of corollary, things in similarity with the original harmonic convergence. So I began doing more research on this, and to my great surprise, when I started studying astrology and understood what the real meaning of this alignment of the stars, because I have a planetarium program called Stellarium. Anybody here can download it. It's a free piece of software that you can install on your computer. And it allows you to change the date and your location on the Earth, and you can see from any place on the surface of Earth what the planets look like. And there's something remarkable that takes place. and it actually starts tomorrow. And so one of the surprises is that the moon will enter the 7th house. And if you know your astrology, the 7th house is the constellation Libra, which only is made up of 5 stars, the 4 stars that make up a very small box in the sky, and the 5th star is outside that box, making a little, if you connect the dots, it's like a square with a little line off to the top. And the moon tomorrow night enters Libra for the very first time. It happens periodically, but it happens tomorrow. And it happens in such a way that it goes right in the middle of this small square defined by the 4 major stars of the Libra constellation. And why I believe that's significant is because there was a famous song in the 1970s called The Age of Aquarius by the Fifth Dimension, funny enough. And that song begins, when the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars. Well, that's a prophetic song, because what happens tomorrow night is when you look in the sky at the right time, you'll see the moon exactly in the middle of Libra, and there's Jupiter and Mars all in alignment. And I believe this is a significant opening of what's going to happen over the month of July.
Wow. I was just really enjoying Satyan's reaction to it. I think, let's face it, we're old
I was
enough.
like, wow, I grew up with that song. I love that song and the whole vibration that evokes, and the dream of a new reality and a universal love blooming on this planet.
That's right.
And the age of Aquarius. That's the dawning of the age of Aquarius. That's the rest of
And
we're here then. You just said we're here based on that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Marc, I want to show I'm going to show the short video.
Okay.
This is because what we really want to do is get as many people in awareness about Harmonic Convergence 2020. I mean, here we are in this incredible timeout of COVID, where most of us are spending much more time at home or exclusively at home, really tuning in, really reviewing. And there's an energy that we want to tap into. So we're going to see this very short video, and then we're going to talk about the Harmonic Convergence 2020. And we're still going to hear from Robert Peralla, for all of you Robert Peralla fans. Here we go.
From July 5th to 14th, a historic experiment is taking place around the world. A global meditation to invite peaceful extraterrestrials to show themselves with thousands of light ships across the sky. During this window in time, a planetary alignment will create an opportunity for us to unite and envision a bright future for our planet. This 10-day event will bring humanity together in this time of unprecedented change to rise up and unify. Indigenous cultures and prophecies have told us of star beings standing with us, ready to help and support our transition to a better future. The Harmonic Convergence 2020 will bring together elders, leaders, artists, and experts to guide us through a transformational journey. The last day will culminate in a global meditation to make contact with our universal family. The impact of this collective experience could usher in a new era of unity, love, and reverence for all life. It is time for us to step up and take action to shape the future of this planet. We are human, and we are not alone.
I'm going to leave it up for a moment because I just want people to write down the where they can find the information on it. So I'm going to go actually back to that. HarmonicConvergence2020.org. There are 2 C's, harmonic, then another C, convergence2020.org. And that's where people can get more information about this whole event that Marc is putting together with a lot of our support now. And let's get the word out to everybody.
And Scott, I'd just like to mention that also there's a URL, thc2020.org, and that's easier to type, it's easier to remember. And if people would share that URL, because it's easy for people, especially in other countries, to misspell harmonic convergence. So I like to promote thc2020.org.
Beautiful, thank you. I just put that in the chat box of our Zoom room, and I'll put in the other chat boxes. And all of you watching, please share this video on your timeline. Over 100 people shared the interview that I did with Marc last week. Let's get this word out there. So Marc, we're almost there. What's gonna happen? Tell me a little bit about what's happening between July 5th and 14th and how Unify is getting involved with that.
Yeah, well, Unify it's interesting. My history with Unify, I originally met the co-founders of Unify, who are Adil Kassar and Patrick Cronfley, in Berkeley, California in August of 2015. And I had just started a nonprofit I co-founded with Danny Sheehan, the famous US constitutional lawyer who represented John Mack at Harvard and saved his job. So Danny and I had become friends in 2015, early that year, through an introduction through a mutual friend. And Danny became fascinated in my story, and I eventually flew out to California, met him at his office in Santa Cruz, and he and I became very good friends soon after that through a series of meetings. And as a consequence, we decided to co-found something called the New Paradigm Institute, which now is the New Paradigm College, based in Lucerne, California on Clear Lake. And that's a whole other story. But back in 2015, we were just getting that organization started, and we had originally wanted it headquartered in Berkeley, right across the street from UC Berkeley. And we had hired an executive director, and we needed an office. And Unify was trying to buy a building in Berkeley, California for their office, and they had raised $4 million, or gotten commitments of $4 million to buy this building. They needed an extra $1 million, and so we thought we could join forces to purchase the building. That ended up not happening, but I did meet Adil and Patrick, and I shared with them this vision that I had once I realized who they were, and that they specialized in organizing national and international meditations. So I felt how fortuitous that I ended up, meeting them. So I shared with both of them this vision I had. And so we became very good friends over the years. And when I reached out to them late last year to get serious about doing this, because I now knew that this was fully on, Tejbar told me, it's time, get busy. So I got busy writing my book in November, and that book is coming out in a few days. That's 13 Days with Tejbar, and people can go to my website, marksims.com, to pre-order that book in the next day or two. That tells my story. But, so I started writing that book in November of last year, and that then led to my reaching out to Patrick and to Adil and say, are you available? Can you help me do this? Like we talked about back in 2015. And they were enthusiastically, happy. They were enthusiastic to help me. And we've been at this for many months, since January. We got really serious in January. So this has been a labor of love, and we're very excited. And for those viewers that are interested, there is an interview that Tejbar encouraged me to do back in Michigan. This was in 2016, when I still lived in the Midwest, in Michigan, in the Detroit area. And I recently made this public for the first time. And it's me back in 2016 talking about the Harmonic Convergence 2020 event. And it's a historic record showing that I was aware that there was going to be this time of turmoil, and that the harmonic convergence would coincide with some turbulent and chaotic times, and so there seems to be have been some pre-planning for all this.
Absolutely. I think I'm only going to read a few. So many comments are coming in, but there's a couple that I want to share. And most of the comments are, this is extraordinary, this is amazing, thank you, Mark. So we're getting a lot of comments like that. But a couple that I just am kind of choosing that I think are, Gail Martinez writes, I had my own personal experience last year. Ever since this night, I knew my whole being that something was going to happen. I am so excited for this great awakening. And Dana Tomasino writes, yes, there was just a global meditation last night to coincide with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, with the intention of helping to consolidate our entry into the age of Aquarius. And so many friends are saying, thank you, oh my God, this is amazing. A lot of excitement. And I just want to say that I think that is, for so long, almost all of us, when I talk to people, and as a coach, I get to know people really well. Almost everyone in my orbit, the people that I deal with, I think the people that are watching, we have felt that in our lifetime, something very extraordinary was going to happen. And most people that I talk to believe that they have a role to play. And I like to think that, we are the butterfly cells, the imaginative cells of the dying caterpillar. As the old paradigm dies, as we all look and see clearly that the world had a lot of dysfunction, still has a lot of dysfunction, and it's time for a great change. And all of us have a role to play. And what if that role includes really being in that state of meditation, really being open to connecting to higher sources? And some of us might experience it as extraterrestrial. Some of us might experience it as spiritual. Some of us, if we're Christian, might experience it in a Christian way, or a Buddhist way, or a meditative way. There are many, many different ways, but this is when people come together with a single intention of connection and planetary transformation, extraordinary things happen. And I think that in 1987, for those of us that were at the Harmonic Convergence, and I was also up at Mount Tam in Marin County, one of our other people was there also, which was kind of cool. The more that we can put our consciousness into changing the world and have it be a positive consciousness, not have it be against any political figure, against any particular thing, but a positive vision. And that's what I see that Marc is creating. And I'm going to just kind of open it up to our panel for a moment to see, Satyan, do you have anything you want to say about you have a lot of experience of bringing people together and creating positive vision through Warrior Sage and accelerated evolution. I'd love to hear what you have to say about how we can use this time together.
My teacher used to call it the time of the quickening many years ago, the quickening of consciousness, where we're spiraling into a higher degree of awareness and awakening. And one of the practices of this time that's advocated is to look at what are the arising opposites in consciousness. And you'll see so many of them. Everything within our media is very oppositional. It captures our units of attention, our freedom, if you will, our presence. And if we can learn to just step by step remove ourselves from getting fettered or drawn in or like Velcroed in to all the things that continue to stir us, then we'll start to feel if you will, a deeper sense of, I believe, unity consciousness that's already emerging right now. And we can meet that, we can greet that, we can honor that, that evolutionary life force that's propelling us to move forward, or we can deny it and keep ourselves absolutely mired down in division. So I believe this is a very opportune time to disengage, recalibrate by feeling, start becoming more and more of our feeling body. And then that'll open the doors to our more intuitive, spiritual body of awareness. And that, I believe, will give us the day-to-day direction, navigation to steer us in the best way forward.
Beautiful. Thank you, Satyan. Thank you so much. So, Marc, how does, what Satyan just said, some of the comments, people are asking, how do I get involved? How can I help? So, what's your response to that?
The most important thing and easiest thing to do is go to thc2020.org, and you'll see a button right there on the front page, on the home page, where you can join the event and you can register, and you'll then be on a mailing list where we will be sending out daily videos and announcements about what's coming up. So I encourage everyone to do that as soon as possible, and you'll be in the loop and getting some really cool stuff. We have some videos that are coming out soon. One of the things that I'd like to share with people is that in 2017, Tejbar told me during a meditation to reproduce 13 famous songs from history. And I've been hard at work working with a number of musical producers around the world. I've been delegating these different songs to different artists to recreate. And the purpose of this evidently is to activate these songs in a way that will help accelerate the rising of consciousness and bring joy and happiness to people at a time in which, of course, we're, really worried and concerned and troubled about what's happening in the world that we see through the media. So I have been doing these songs. The most important, the first song, and Tejbar said was the most important song of the 13, was the song "Peace is the Word," and Scott has played that before on an earlier program, not on your program here, but with Saturday Night Live with the Global Peace Tribe. And that song, if you listen to it, it's based on the song "Grease," the title song for the musical, which came out in the late 70s and is probably the #1 known musical in the world. It's been translated to all the major languages of the planet, and the music is amazing. So many great songs, but the song "Grease," if you listen to the lyrics, makes no sense whatsoever. It was written by Barry Gibb, and what Tejbar told me was that this song was channeled by Barry Gibb in the 70s to be turned into the title song in a way that it would be used today for this purpose, the harmonic convergence. So if I invite people to listen to the words, the lyrics of the song "Grease." It makes no sense whatsoever. He told me to change 2 words, the word "grease" to "peace" in every occurrence in the lyrics, and the word "notion" or "motion" to "notion." So I did that. I worked with a Hollywood music producer. He's very famous. His name is Bruce Sugar, and he recreated this song with some amazing musical artist and vocalist. And we turned this into a music video, and we're doing that for all 13 songs. And these songs are going to be coming out 1 a day throughout the harmonic convergence. There are a few that will be played daily, a handful. So that's going to be really fun because the songs are amazing. The videos are outstanding. And there's some special treats for people if they will register and follow along.
Great. What I'll do is at the very end of this interview, I'll play the song. We can close that way. How's that
okay,
sound?
Great.
People are asking about the initial meditation. Several people have said, is there a way to learn the meditation that took you into that state where you were able to attract your experience? Is that something that you have a way that people can learn that from you, Marc?
Yes. In fact, during the harmonic convergence, we will be doing 7 hours of live programming for 10 days straight. Starting at 11 in the morning, I will be leading a meditation, and I will be teaching people how to do the meditation that Tejbar told me. Now, I never meditated before 2012. The first meditation I ever learned was Greer's CE5 protocol. But after my experience, and about a year and a half after 2012, I started my own CE5 group in Michigan, inviting friends to go out into the field at night with me. And I was given a new meditation to teach them. And we began using that, and we got very good at calling in craft. And in fact, we got so effective that one of the members of my team, his name was Dan Warner, a very dear friend of mine, invested in a night vision camera. Back then it was pretty expensive. He bought a high-end Gen 3 military scope, night vision scope, and custom built a coupler to a Sony video camera, a nice Sony video camera. And he took it out into the field for the first time on November 2nd, 2014. And there were 9 of us together doing the CE5 protocol. It was very cold in Michigan. We were in Auburn Hills, which is near Detroit. And we were sitting in a football field, and we had just started. We were meditating together. He turns on the camera just to test it for the first time while we were meditating. He's pointing it up, and right through the viewfinder, the very first time, a craft flew right through the viewfinder.
Wow.
And I have that original footage, and I will be sharing that during the Harmonic Convergence. And we used his camera to capture dozens of craft over the 2 years we worked together. So that was 2014. Actually, that was the last time we got together as a group in 2014. And then in 2015, we would go out quite often, and we got a lot of footage. And I've kept it to myself. I did do a video that's on my Vimeo Pro account that I will be sharing with people during the Harmonic Convergence. And some of this video is quite remarkable.
Sorry, I was just pulling up the information because we're going to show people the photograph of Olax that's going to be on the July 11th show. So I apologize for not being muted when I was pulling up.
So I think how much time are we going to have tonight, Scott? I forgot to ask at the beginning of the hour.
At Love Coach Academy has every Tuesday night at 7:30, we have a Fantuzzi concert. So we've got till about 7:20, and then we've got to wrap up. So we've got about 16 minutes left.
Okay.
So we could show the second part of the Harmonic Convergence doc, or we could show pieces the word. I do want to briefly share screen and show a couple of things here. We're going to have a very special Saturday night alive for the Global Peace Tribe, specifically on what's happening right in the middle of the Harmonic Convergence. It's going to be on July 11th, 2020. So that's a week from this Saturday night. It'll be right in the middle of course, it's starting on the 5th, but we'll be having interviews with some of the people that are participating in what Marc is doing. And we're really excited about it. And we just today booked the group Olax. They are finalists in America's Got Talent. They're this incredible Siberian musical group that wear these amazing costumes, and they make incredible sound. And they're going to be one of many musical artists. So definitely put in your calendar Saturday night, July 11th. And I'm personally going to continue bringing in people to interview. Marc has some remarkable connections in the UFO ET field. So do Robert and Alan. So really very much over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be having special programs like this where we are meeting spiritual teachers, experiencers, all in preparation for what's happening during July 5th through the 11th. So just wanted to get those in there. Marc, what would you like for me to show next?
Yeah, I think the part 2 of that video would be excellent. Why don't we show that?
All right, you got it. And some of you who came on early, you saw part 1. But this is all about really going into greater detail of what's going to be taking place during the Harmonic Convergence 2020. And we want all of you to participate in this.
33 years after the 1987 Harmonic Convergence, the world is a very different place. Meditation, yoga, and transforming consciousness have gone mainstream. We've seen an outpouring of companies donating billions towards social impact and ecological restoration. A new generation of entrepreneurs are dedicated to making social impact over bottom-line profit. And there is a resurgence of indigenous wisdom making its way into the Western world. And yet, we continue to participate in the destruction of ecosystems and indigenous lands. While in many ways things are better than ever, social media and smartphones have made it impossible to hide from our own shadow. We find ourselves in 2020 at an unprecedented time of division. But strong division also provides us with a rare opportunity for profound healing, transformation, and unity. And as we approach another exceptional alignment of planets and prophecy, it's time to prepare ourselves for the Harmonic Convergence of 2020. In the year 2020, while many people may still feel shy about sharing their belief in extraterrestrials, more than half of the human population believes they exist, and 61% of those who believe think that we should try to make contact. Is humanity ready to accept once and for all that we are not alone through mass contact? Are those who are claiming that they are ETs because they know they exist?
I learned about Dr. Stephen Greer and what he was doing teaching people the CE5 protocol, which was a meditative practice that he developed to initiate contact with extraterrestrial intelligence.
The CE5 protocol, developed by Dr. Stephen Greer, has resulted in over 30,000 people participating in contact expeditions, many resulting in UFO sightings or even direct contact experiences.
And I was skeptical, very skeptical when I first heard about this. And there were a lot of people claiming that they had indeed met extraterrestrials, that they had had face-to-face experiences, in fact, that led to friendships. I was like, I want to look into this.
On the 5th night of a 6-day training with Dr. Greer, Marc had a life-changing experience.
Right after we meditated, we opened our eyes and we're looking up in the sky, and a ship materialized out of thin air right in front of us. When I went back to my hotel room, I could not fall asleep. I decided to sit up in my bed and do my own meditation and try to summon a ET, and guess what? It worked. I opened my eyes, and standing at the end of my bed is a light being, a being that appears to be a hologram.
Since that night, Marc has developed a deep connection with the ET named Teshbar. Teshbar has shared with Marc aspects of the ET philosophy that may help us understand the next stage of human progress.
So he told me that consciousness begins in the animal kingdom, and through the modus operandi of reincarnation, the soul, the individualized soul, is developed. And when that dies, that little spark of consciousness is released, and that happens many, 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 many times. And then we graduate to the human level. So if this is true, and I believe it is, we have this very tight connection to nature that goes beyond just being out in nature and appreciating it. We are nature. We have been those animals. You were the frog. You were the praying mantis. You were the butterfly. You were the eagle. You were the wolf.
If the soul progresses through different physical forms to learn lessons, what are the characteristics that we must now learn in order to grow to the next stage of the soul's evolution?
Teshbar said that mastering unconditional love was the key to ascension after the physical death. And I asked him the question, well, what is unconditional love, and how does one master it? And he said, that's for you to discover.
What does it mean to accept and love others unconditionally? And is humanity ready to make the leap?
to truly love another human being, you have to first love yourself unconditionally. Only then can you truly love another.
Could it be that in the school of Earth, humanity is learning how to love one another? And if we can pass the test, we will graduate to join a universal family of advanced beings.
It would appear that we are well along the way to becoming truly civilized. And if we can refrain from committing racial suicide and learn to respect the dignity and brotherhood of man, we can expect eventually to be welcomed into the great cosmic fraternity of the advanced races that inhabit the regions beyond the limits of this little planet.
But if we take an honest look at the state of the world today, we may still have some lessons to learn about what it means to be a species of love.
One of the things that we are lacking on this planet is a reverence for life. And all the insects and all the mammals and birds and reptiles and amphibians, they all make a tapestry of life that we have lost reverence for.
One of the most glaring examples of a lack of reverence for life today is the continued destruction of Earth's ecosystems. Often this comes at the cost of sacred lands that have been protected by indigenous peoples for centuries. Unbeknownst to many, indigenous lands account for about 80% of the Earth's biodiversity. Perhaps there is a reason that they are its protectors. Perhaps a first step toward embodying the principle of love would be to learn from and integrate their wisdom, seeking to protect instead of extract.
All of us had gotten away from the purpose of being here, away from the Creator. We are here for purpose. Get the people to come and unite. Unity was the way the people lived before, in harmony.
Though despite opportunities for growth, humanity finds itself at an unprecedented time of opportunity to make massive change.
We must remember that in the last 100 years, we have increased our technology from the level of horse-drawn wagons to space shuttles, men walking on the moon, computers in the home, etc. If we were studying quantum physics, we would say a particle that's gathering so much momentum and so much energy is preparing to make a quantum leap into the next higher level or the next higher energy state. We are indeed beginning to enter the quantum evolution phase of the human race.
Nothing like this has happened before in the context of which it's happening with the technology, and that we're a world community, truly a world community now for the first time.
If we recall, millions of people unified for the Harmonic Convergence of 1987. So, what is possible today in an age of mass communication?
What we are doing is an experiment in which we're engaging the planet, all the people who wish to be part of something remarkable that would result in a global sighting, where everybody sees a ship at the same time. And there's no question after this that we are not alone. And that's what is before us. That's the opportunity for us.
On July 14th, 2020, a powerful and rare alignment of planets provides a similar opportunity to the 87 convergence. What can we do to prepare ourselves for this powerful moment and take advantage of the opportunity that is before us?
So the preparation for the Harmonic Convergence is as critical as what we do on those days. And it's really a time for people to prepare on a very deep level to come together on those days, to totally focus from their hearts an energy of love and of healing, to surround and embrace our planet, to give our total focus and our total love emanated from the heart.
The Harmonic Convergence 2020 virtual event is a transformational 10-day experience with speakers, performances, and meditations designed to help us prepare energetically for universal contact.
We want to prepare people for what's about to happen.
Evolution is spiritual and mental. We are here to advance our intelligence, to raise our mental horizons, to expand our spirituality.
We want peace on Earth. We don't want to destroy it. And there is a future for us all. We may have different ways of describing it, but we all have a common aim. And the world is getting in such a mess nowadays that we have to work hard together to get through and to make a wonderful future.
If millions of us around the planet can unify in love and kindness, can we collectively transform the energy of pain and destruction into healing and creativity? The time is now for a spiritual transformation to happen, and it starts with you, stepping into your own capacity for love and sharing it with the world. No matter what our story is, we are all capable of love and kindness. Join us for an extraordinary gathering for the Harmonic Convergence of 2020.
And again, for anybody watching new, you can go to thc2020.org. Please, everybody go to thc2020.org, where you can get the information, sign up, and be notified of everything that's happening. I've had a chance to read the chat, and people are asking for Robert Perala. Where's Robert? Where's Robert? So Robert, I want to just give you a moment. You've been in the UFO field a long time. What stands out for you about Marc's story and what he's creating?
Well, first, let me say that I think Marc is very, very compelling, startling. I love your work, Marc. I saw you at Contact in the Desert, and I felt that, there was no question about it. You were right along understanding that, Earth is being birthed into a larger expression right now. And I think with the harmonic convergence and bringing it about at this particular time, you're arriving right on time, taking advantage of there's an alignment that's here, and reminding us that we're really here by divine appointment more than anything else. And what I like about your work is that you're reminding people that our thoughts are tangible things, and that if we concentrate and send our thoughts with true intention, we have very tangible results. And I love it that you work with Danny Sheehan. I work with him here regularly in Santa Cruz. And I love it that you're leading this meditation, because I think it's vital that we, and just vital that we do this at this time to take advantage, because the Earth is being birthed into a larger expression. I think we all need to take part in that.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. We're pretty much almost out of time, but I want to let people know that this Friday night, I'm intending to do at least one more interview with some of the people that are involved in all of this. We'll see if Marc's available. Marc is setting us up also with some extraordinary contactees. So please stay closely connected to Love Coach Academy. Please sign up at thc2020.org. And Marc, any last thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, Scott, I'm going to be there Friday night.
Great.
And the person that we want to bring in for that event. He's in Bangkok, Thailand. He's an American who reached out to me a few days ago. He published a book called Alien Child. His name is Willard Vanden Bogart. What's remarkable about this man that reached out to me recently is that he's published his first book called Alien Child. It turns out that he was a very dear friend of Jose Arguelles and helped Jose organize the original 1987 Harmonic Convergence. And very few people, I was not even aware of this man, and he just came out with his book on the 18th of June. So you can go to Amazon. If you search Alien Child, you're not going to find his book. It's brand new, but his name is Willard Van de Bogart, like the actor Bogart. I'll put it in the chat session here because he and I have been in constant communication for the past 4 days. And he he's just an incredible human being. He's now 80 years old. He looks like he's 60. You can find him on Facebook, Willard Bogart, and I encourage people to reach out to him. He's ready to come out of the closet and share his story. He, like I said, supported both Jose and his wife, Lloydine, in organizing the original Harmonic Convergence. And what really touches me very deeply is that his book, Alien Child, tells his true story about being, communing with a celestial being back in 1952 when he was 12 years old. So his story is very similar to my own. And he and I have become very close friends.
And so hopefully we're going to have Willard with us, with Marc and I, and probably one or two other extraordinary beings, all talking about this amazing way we're all coming together at this powerful time. Thank you, Satyan, Alan, and Robert. By the way, Alan's going to be doing an interview with Marc at 11 o'clock Pacific time this Friday. So you can tune into New Realities TV, their YouTube channel, and see Marc's interview. Then I'll be back with Marc and Willard on Friday night at 6 o'clock. And I want to encourage any of you, just stay on Love Coach Academy, because at 7:30 we've got Fan Tuesdays. After all of this, we've got a lot to digest, a lot of information to digest, and a wonderful way to digest it is through the music of our beloved brother Fantuzzi. So that's going to be happening in just 7 minutes on the Love Coach Academy channels. Marc, thank you for all that you're doing. And I want to acknowledge Marc's team, Maura, Shauna, and his amazing team of people that are working a lot to make this incredible thing happen. So thank you. And again, thank you, Robert, Alan, Satyan, for joining us.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Share this on your Facebook pages. Pop it out there. Let's get the word out about Harmonic Convergence 2020. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Marc.
Bye-bye.